If you're having trouble starting your car or it won't start at all, well then you've already probably narrowed down the problem to either your battery or your charging system, which also includes your alternator, your starter, but which is it? I mean, they all work so closely together. So today's video, I'm actually just gonna focus on the battery and show you guys some simple tests you all can do right at home on your own, so that way you can start ruling in or ruling out your battery as a possible guilty party. I'm Rachel DeBarros, and this is Gearhead Diva. Okay, so if you're watching this video, I suspect you're experiencing either one or more of these battery and alternator symptoms. So again, they work harmoniously. Sometimes it's kind of tough to tell which is doing what, but we're gonna try and separate it out, focusing on the battery side for this video. So probably one of the most prominent things you'll notice is as you're cranking the car, you'll see your battery light come on along with all the other lights that normally come on, but then it doesn't shut off. I mean, it stays illuminated. So that's your first indication that there's something wrong with your charging system. It's like the check engine light of your charging system. So it could be your battery, your alternator, or your starter, or something with your electrical connections to all of those components. So after that, if you're having trouble cranking the engine, so it's cranking either really slowly, not at all, or you're hearing like this clicking sound as you crank, well, those are all indicators of something going on with either your battery, your starter, or your alternator. After that, probably kind of a stranger one, it's kind of haunted, like your lights are looking a little bit dimmer than normal. Some of your electronics shut off on you, or they don't turn on at all. So that's another sign. But even weirder than that, since we're going down the haunted path here, is you smell a weird rotten egg smell coming from the engine bay. And that's definitely an indicator of your battery more than anything. That means your battery was either frozen or overcharged, or you had a short happen in there. So that's a definite sign that that battery needs to go. Get it out right away. It starts emitting that nasty sulfur smelling gas that smells like rotten eggs. But probably the biggest indicator that should make you really suspicious is the age of your battery. Now, batteries only last at most 4 to 5 years. So if you've hit like that 3-year mark, I would start to grow quite suspicious of that whole thing. Most batteries are good for about 48 months under normal driving conditions. Again, depending on where you live and how you drive your car or how often, really can extend or decrease the life of your battery. But 3 years, I'd start to get pretty suspicious. Now, this particular battery, I know for a fact, is at least 5 years old. That's right, I know, total confession of mine. Don't judge. But I figured it'd be a perfect test subject for all of our poking and prodding. So let's start with this battery. And first things first, let's visually inspect it, because this can rule out a bunch of things right from the get-go. All right, so before doing any official testing, the first thing I like to do is just visually inspect the battery. And I know that sounds so obvious and, well, totally lame, but this step tells you a lot and pretty much either can fully rule in or rule out a lot of things. So the first thing I like to start with is checking the terminals. Now, if you don't go under your car a whole heck of a lot, or under the hood, I should say, sometimes this can be a nasty surprise. So looking at the terminals here, what you don't want to see is this kind of green corrosive buildup. Sometimes it's pink in color, a little pinkish. So this is not actually too bad right here, but I would look at cleaning it, sooner than later. This terminal doesn't look as bad here on the positive end. And what happens is sometimes this corrosion can build up in places you can't see it. So right around your post and where your ring meet, right in between the two, and that blocks your connection. And the more corrosion that builds up, the more resistance you have to your electrical flow and your volts or your voltage. So looking at these, I mean, you can see a little bit of corrosion here. It's not too bad, but I'm actually saving the cleaning of these for another video. So moving on from corrosive terminals, you can see that my battery in particular has a case on it, a protective case And maybe that's one of the reasons it's just lasted so well. I mean, everything is pretty protected here. But on your case, and I'll find you an example of a naked battery, but things you want to look out for is that the casing isn't bloated, like it's, you know, just finished its Thanksgiving dinner. That means that the battery has been overcharged. So you know right there that whether it's a combination of the battery or the alternator, you want to change your battery because it's already been damaged. Not only that, if you see cracking on the case or holes in it, now this doesn't mean that your battery is not going to work. That's more of an indication that the battery was probably mishandled. So either something in the shipping or when they were installing your battery, maybe it fell or banged up against something. And just for that safety reason alone, I would probably swap out the battery. So that's pretty much the extent of my visual process. If you have any really great visual process tips of your own, I would love to hear them, post them in the comments. But pretty much I'm ready to start the official testing section of the video. For our first test, well, it's more like just taking a baseline reading than an actual official test. But for this, we're just going to determine the state of charge of the battery, meaning how full it is. Kind of like your gas tank. Is it half full? Is it a quarter full? Is it pretty much all the way full? And for that, all you're going to need is your trusty multimeter. Now, I've had this one forever, and it only cost me, I think, like 20 bucks. It's allowed me to figure out so many problems, saved me some money too. So it's a great thing to have. Now, if you don't use yours very often or you don't have too much experience with it, I have a great beginner's crash course. I'll post the link right in the description so you can go through that first, and then for the rest of these tests, well, there'll be a piece of cake after that. So I'm just gonna rest this here and start getting it set up. But because we're being so super official with everything, I figure the first thing I'm going to do before we even take our reading is get rid of any potential surface charge that we have on our battery. Now, if you're not too familiar with what that is, basically your battery, without getting into all of the molecular science details, it's a box that houses a chemical reaction. And this chemical reaction happens kind of slowly, it takes its time, and it happens first on the surface of the plates of your battery. It takes more time for it to penetrate more deeply. So what happens is if you leave that surface charge on the plates, it can actually make a bad battery, give it enough of that little charge to jump it into the good category. And we definitely don't want that. We don't want any bad batteries sneaking by us. So for the most true reading we can get, we want to knock off that surface charge. And the easiest way to do it is just to discharge your battery a little bit. And all you have to do is just leave the car off, jump inside and turn on your headlights, and you want to let them sit on for, I would say, 2 to 5 minutes, maybe something a little closer to 5 minutes, and then shut it off and let your car sit for about 10 minutes. And then after that, you'll be ready to do your test, and you're going to know that your readings are more accurate because, again, the reaction is going to first start happening on the surface of those plates, so that's where the discharge is going to happen first too. So you know you're going to knock all that off. And so let's see what it looks like now after I've done that. And this is pretty basic, red to red, black to black. You can mix them up too. You'll just get a negative on your reading, and I have my multimeter here set to 20, so it's reading up to 20 volts, and we can see that we have 12.57. So you want a reading anywhere between 12.4 or 12.6. So that's a fully charged battery, or 75% to fully charged. So my battery ended up being in that 12.4 to 12.6 range. So I can actually go to the next and final test. But for those of you that maybe your battery is just not reading that high, maybe it's like 12.2, which is like your 50%-ish type of mark, or maybe even lower, well, that doesn't necessarily automatically mean that your battery is bad. It could still be holding a charge. Just like having a good reading on my battery doesn't necessarily mean it's all the way good, and we're going to see that in the next test. But in order for you to do the next test, you do need a fully charged battery. So if that's not your case, there's a couple things you can do. If you can start your car, go ahead and start it, let the alternator run its course, let it charge up the battery. You can even drive around to make this happen a lot faster. Well, say you can't even start your car. Well, for you, this video is over. So I'll see you all next time. Well, no, I'm kidding. The video isn't over for you. There's still a chance. So I highly recommend you getting a battery charger at home. These things are so great, especially for cars that you don't drive every day. Sometimes they'll sit for more than a week if you have multiple cars. It's always healthier for the battery to keep it charged. You don't want it to drain so much because then sulfation builds up on those leads, on those plates, and it becomes really hard and you're decreasing the life of your battery. So always keep it charged. The best way to do that is just to drive it often. So say you don't have a battery charger now at home and your battery is still dead. So what do? Well, for me, this was invaluable. I went ahead and picked up one of these battery jumpers. So say you have none of that. So now your car doesn't start, you don't have a charger, you don't have a jumper. So now what do? Well, it's all is not lost because your battery could still be good. So you want to try and salvage it. So remove it from the car, just pop off the terminals and remove it from any bracketry that's holding it and take it to your local auto parts store, get a ride there, and they'll recharge it for you. Some places will charge you a nominal fee, others do it totally for free. And on top of that, also totally for free, some places do, is that they'll run the rest of the tests for you and they'll be able to determine 100% if your battery is good or bad. So if your battery is recharged, follow me to the next steps and we're going to do our final test. So even though, like we saw with my battery, it can still hold a charge and so far all looks good. But over time, does this battery still have enough cold cranking amps to start the car? Now this starts to decrease over time and then one day everything seems great until you turn that key and then it's not great. So this test will actually help you determine that even though your car is starting and it kind of seems like it sounds great, this is kind of the first initial test that will tell you that maybe there's a problem coming up right around the corner. So to do this test, it's pretty easy. All I'm going to do is hold the leads onto the battery while a buddy starts the car. So it's easier to do this with two people unless you have alligator clamps, but still you need someone to watch the meter or set up a camera like this to watch it. And what you don't want is for the reading to fall below 10. Like 9.6 is like the official, number, but please, if it falls below 10, about time to start changing that battery. So watch it for me. Let's watch it together because it can go rather quick. And so just going to start the car. Oh my gosh, did you guys see that too? It went below 10, didn't it? It went to like 9 point something, not so good. So that's a clear indication that it's time for this battery to go because although it was holding a charge pretty well, it's not gonna have enough cold cranking amps to start the car. Now, I may be good for today. It might have a problem tonight, next week, or maybe even a month from now, but I know that time is imminent when I'm gonna get in the car and the time I'm gonna need it the most, that's just not going to crank over and I'm going to be a sitting duck. So that's my first order of business now, is changing the battery. So I was able to rule in that my problem is the battery. But if you pass the test, well, check back with me again next week because we're going to hit up the alternator and continue our testing. So I know I bragged about my 5-year-old battery and look how great it is. Well, it turns out it's not so great. And those of you with a battery that's 3 years old or older, I would grow equally suspicious. But I don't judge and I expect you not to either because we're all in the same boat. I know how it is. It's like, spending money on cool parts for my project car or boring OEM stuff for my daily driver, which I need to kind of get everywhere, but ooh, shiny car parts, OEM, shiny car parts, shiny car parts.